for your time and for the interview. I will start with the first question. You are an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author. This is all labels that are assigned to people to define them.
Right.
But how you see yourself, how you define yourself?
So, firstly, anyone can write a book. Being an author is not a big deal. Anyone can get on stage and speak. Being a speaker is not a big deal. And anybody can be an entrepreneur, right? You can start a web logo business on 99 designs and make $5 a month designing one logo, and you're an entrepreneur. All of those terms are rubbish.
Yes.
How I define myself is based on what I stand for. So the biggest thing that I stand for is global unity. So everything we do in Mindvalley is about bringing people across the world together as one human species. What this means is that if you look at the way we operate, our university has people from 70 different countries. Our team itself, the team that runs this company, is 54 different countries. I'm an activist for global unity. That's the number one thing I do. Other than Mindvalley, my biggest project in the world is creating an earth flag, a flag for the entire human species that I want to make more important than their national flags. If you look at one of the greatest threats in the world today, it's global warming. It's an existential threat. And the only way we can fix things like that is by coming together as one earth species. If you look at what happened here in the former Yugoslavian states in the early 90s, that too was because of nationalism. It was people who spoke a relatively similar language and had a shared history going to war with each other because nationalist politicians created that nonsense. I was a photojournalist actually in Croatia and Bosnia during that war, and I wrote a senior paper on it. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I so believe in bringing cultures together. That's the primary thing I do. I'm an activist for global unity. Now, the second thing I do is I happen to be an activist for transformational education, taking the things that truly transform us as a human being and bringing it into an education system that has so far forgotten to teach the stuff that really matters.
Okay, thank you. So you run the world's leading personal growth company, and we assume that you grew up and evolved together with your company. And what do you think? How much options or space you have to your further progress?
Well, the funny thing is, if you're an expert in any field, the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. There's even a scientific study for this. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. What it means is people who know very little about a field feel they know everything. When you go deeper, whether it's physics or math or personal growth, the deeper you go, the more you understand how much you don't know. So I can tell you, I have so much to grow. And I have so many goals related to my growth. Because the deeper I go, the more you unlock these different ideas and these different possibilities. So when I first got started, for example, it was about meditation. And I went really deep in meditation. Then I realized I'm meditating. My mind is good, but my body wasn't good. So I went really deep into fitness. Now I'm going really deep into athletic training and really deep into speed reading and really deep into parenting and really deep into leadership. The deeper you go, the more you realize how much further you have to go. And so it's a never-ending quest. But the thing is, there's a beauty in the process. I enjoy learning. I enjoy growing. And so as I'm doing this, I'm having the time of my life. Mindvalley University doesn't feel like work for me. It's actually a lot of fun.
Thank you. So we know that life is full of ups and downs, and even for people who work on their personal growth and are on high level of transformation. But how you deal with your downs? What is your easiest way to get back in the high vibration?
So, firstly, I'm really glad you asked that question, because no matter how deep you go into personal growth, it doesn't mean that you no longer have dark days or you no longer wake up feeling sad or lonely or depressed. It still happens. The thing is to gain enough sense of self-mastery where when life goes up and down and up and down and up and down, you have the right tools to take the ups and make them last longer, and to take the downs and make them last a little bit less. You don't want to eliminate the downs because there's a lesson in the down. In Eastern philosophy, the downs are called kensho moments, especially when you have a prolonged down. Maybe You're depressed because you got injured and you end up in hospital, where you're depressed or you're sad because someone broke your heart or a business fails. Kensho moments are moments where you grow from pain. So what happens is you go through pain, but through that pain you evolve. And so what's going on there is that you're going through a down, but that down has a beauty and an elegance to it. It's helping you evolve to the next stage of your life. For example, I went through a divorce. That can be a down. But when you come out of a relationship, you realize what you need to change about yourself and how you need to grow so your next relationship is better. And so I don't fight the downs, and neither should anyone. But rather you should know that there's often a beauty and an elegance and a meaning within the down. And when you can see that meaning, you get to go to your next level. You get to gain the lesson from that. Viktor Frankl, the great concentration camp survivor who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, said, when meaning is given to suffering, it ceases to become suffering. And that's often what these downs are for. It's suffering with a lesson embedded in it.
Yes, and then you grow. Do you have any technique or something that when you're down, do you try something to do to go faster on?
The best technique is the practice of meditation and introspection. Being able to go within and to reflect on what you're going through in life, to bring in meditation protocols or transcendent practices into your life. I start every day with about 30 minutes of meditation. And that's one of the best ways to eliminate the downs. It's now been proven by science. When you do the right type of meditation, your happiness levels go up. You have less down days. That's now been validated by science, which is why meditation is becoming so mainstream right now.
Yes, I agree, because I also meditate, so
Right.
I can see the progress in me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. Okay, so next question. People who have the will to work on their personal growth are easy to engage in education programs, but there are still a lot of people who live in the world unconsciously on autopilot.
Right.
How to motivate those people who do not have enough will for learning and to grow? And
Well,
develop?
firstly, if somebody doesn't have a will for learning, I don't think it's up to us to motivate them. What often happens in life, though, and you see this all around, what often happens in life is transformation, which is the act of growing, happens in two ways. And all the learning theories, all the professors at universities that study transformation agree on these two ways. Transformation happens through gradual, evolved meaning schema over time. Now, that's a fancy way of saying that over time, we gain wisdom through speaking to people, maybe through reading books, maybe through a wise mentor, but it's slow. But a faster way of transformation is what is called the disorienting dilemma, and that is suffering. It's painful, it's fast, it's when the life comes and knocks you over, and you emerge out of that with a desire to fix yourself or heal yourself. A lot of people come to Mindvalley. We have 10.3 million followers right now, last I checked. A lot of people find us because they were suicidal, or someone broke their heart, or they lost their job, and they needed to find an answer. And so they were not necessarily people who were active on learning, but life came and hit them by the side, and they needed to find that answer. And once they discovered this idea of personal growth, they realized how beautiful it is, and that became their passion. So that's what's happening to people all around the world. It's the grand waking up. And it happens to individuals at precise moments in their lives. You may be 60, you may be 16, but people often go through that. Now, when you embrace personal growth, your transformation becomes faster. You're not having to go through a distressing dilemma. You're not having to get slow, evolved meaning over time. You're actively studying and transforming. Our best students on Mindvalley spend an hour a day reading or listening to a podcast or going through a Mindvalley quest or attending seminars. They're constantly growing. And so they tend to have really beautiful lives that they're happy with.
Yeah, the people who mostly live their downs in their life, and they are not aware how much this education and personal growth can help them. Maybe there is some situation that happened in our lives that we we in certain moment realize that we need something to change.
Right.
But there are a lot of people that don't realize that they need to change, and they live all the time on this same
and it's
patterns.
unfortunate that they do. That is the problem with the modern education system. It doesn't give you the right tools. So to get to these people, what we are doing is we currently are developing new models for education that we're hoping to deploy in schools around the world. So Mindvalley University, that's happening here in Croatia, is actually an education experiment. There are countless experiments happening on kids 3 to 6 in terms of their education. The education experiments happening on kids 7 to 9, and then 10 to 12, 13 onwards, and then adults. And we have 400 schools globally that have reached out to us to ask us to bring these ideas in schools. As we discover what works, we deploy this in schools. But here in Pula, at our location, is where a lot of these experiments are happening with educators, with students, with adults.
So I have a question that is connected with this. How to motivate young people to devote themselves to learning rather than mostly spending time on online gaming or social networks?
So firstly, there is nothing wrong. A lot of people believe it is wrong for young people to be online 1 to 2 hours a day. I did that when I was young. There is no scientific evidence that say that your child going online is going to be bad for them. Zero. So parents have to stop forgetting about that. You know, every time a new technology emerges, the current generation, which saw the shift in technology, will condemn it. When writing emerged in ancient Greece, Socrates said, writing, this is going to be a disaster. How are we going to be able to remember things in our head if we can put it down on paper? And our generation, your and my generation, now has this weird fear about technology. It's a bullshit fear. There's zero scientific studies. I just interviewed Neri Yal, the Stanford professor who wrote the book, he wrote books on habits, right? I think his book was called The Power of Habit. No scientific evidence at all. In fact, kids learn a lot from these devices. It's helping them prepare for the future. So parents shouldn't have to worry about that. But on top of that, it is good if your kid has a healthy practice of personal growth. Now, sports is personal growth, but you can make your kid have a better experience if they're educated in nutrition. Parenting is a personal growth process, but you should be reading books on parenting. We need to encourage our children, and as parents, we need to start with ourselves to understand the different dimensions of what it means to be human and innovate in these dimensions for ourselves. We need to study and grow our spiritual nature, our mental abilities, our physical abilities. We need to study how to eat, how to exercise. And these things are not hard. Just, for example, you can follow the Mindvalley YouTube channel, Mindvalley Talks. We have hundreds of talks on all of these topics completely free. Or follow the Mindvalley podcast, completely free. These things are so easily accessible.
Okay. Could you tell us which programs you run at Mindvalley for kids and teens? Could you give us some specific topics or examples of that?
So our most popular program for teenagers is called Superbrain. Now, Superbrain teaches people how to become a better learner. Schools force you to learn, but they don't teach you how to learn. What if kids can read faster, remember more? What if kids easily could, say, memorize the periodic table of elements, easily learn languages? Superbrain is a program that teaches that. And we're seeing that in 80% of kids, it leads to a grade increase long after they finish the program. School becomes easier for them. With younger children, we are still developing programs online. That in the real world, we are experimenting here at Mindvalley University on a range of different programs. For example, the young kids at Mindvalley University here were learning everything from nutrition, how to identify what foods to eat so they live healthy. They were learning about creative visualization, how to use your mind to accelerate healing, especially to accelerate healing of the skin, because many kids, of course, have pimples. So lots of different variety of things are being taught to the kids here, and at the same time, the kids are learning about each other. For example, we brought in a Syrian refugee so that the children can learn how people on the other side of the world. This is a guy who had to leave Homs, the city of Homs in Syria when it was bombed, and live in a refugee camp and was put in prison. And you get to understand how a person like that lives so that you get to develop greater compassion in your heart. So it's a very holistic approach.
Yes, that's great. Could you tell us about future plans related to educational development? do you think to keep education online at these yearly events, or perhaps consider the possibility of forming session school in various countries that will have throughout the year different courses related to a lifelong education?
So the thing is, we have 1,000 people in Pula right now, going very deep. However, what people don't know is that this is a tiny slice of Mindvalley. This year, we will have 400,000 people online on our app going through 30-day programs. So almost 500,000. And we'll scale that. Pretty soon we'll hit 1 million, and then the goal is to hit 1 billion. But most of our programs are online on the app. What you're seeing in Pula is about 1% of our audience that love coming together in the real world and have the finances to allow them to do it.
Okay. Do you have any statistic or information about the success of the students at this after the events, or perhaps about their successful collaboration with them?
Yes. So one of the biggest things we look at is that there are many teenagers over here who, after this event, they learn to start their own business. They collaborate with other students and they create a business. For example, there was one kid who dreamed of starting his own shop to sell design t-shirts. He loved graphic design. And he was thinking about going to university and then learning business so that when he graduates from university, he could create an online shop and start a brand to sell designer t-shirts. So he was at Mindvalley University 2 years ago, and one of the adults there who was teaching the class learned about his dream, and the adult said, well, why do you have to wait 6 years? Why didn't I teach you today how to open a Shopify store? So he opened a store on Shopify.com, which is an online retail platform, and by that weekend he had made his first sale, and it changed the kid's life. He was 16 years old. And so the kid said, look, I still am going to go to university, but now at least I know I'm going there as an entrepreneur, and I might even be able to pay for the university myself. And so he's so excited because his mind changed. He realized he didn't need a university degree to be successful. He can already follow his dream. He can already become an entrepreneur. The university degree is just optional. He's going to do it anyway because he wants to learn, but he's going into university with a different mindset. And that's the type of successes that we look for.
So the last question. Our magazine is called Pleasure, and so it's about beauty in life. And we ask all the people who we interview, what mean the word pleasure to you, beside your children and
right.
the work you do, because we know that this is
Yeah.
the most important thing for you, but the word pleasure, what you can define?
So to me, pleasure is, I feel great pleasure when I'm at events like that and I see the connection that's developing. The connection between the different people who have come from all across the world and are here. Like today, for example, after the classes end, everyone is going to the beach. There'll be several hundred people on the beach, adults and children. And I love seeing all of these people connecting so deeply. That to me is pleasure.
Okay, thank you.